Welcome to Dumfries Museum.
And welcome to the Dark Dumfries video, and we hope this will inspire you to come and discover some of the fascinating artefacts housed here within the museum, those that may have a slightly darker side.
The cast of Robert the Bruce is on display here at Dumfries Museum. After his death in 1329, Bruce's body was interred in Dunfermline Abbey. The site of the tomb was lost. In 1818, workmen making repairs to the abbey discovered a skeleton that had been wrapped in gold cloth within a stone tomb. This was examined by Robert Liston, an Edinburgh surgeon. Now, Bruce had wanted his heart to be taken to the Holy Lands, and after his death, his breastbone had been sawn away so that the heart could be removed.
When you're visiting Dumfries Museum, I would highly recommend a visit to the Sacred Stones room. Housed within it are some very poignant memorials. Among them are some stones that remember people who had actually taken their own lives. These were known as suicide stones. Now, one of those stones has two sets of initials on it, and one theory is that this was a pact between two people to end their own lives, and they were discovered up in the Lowther Hills, and it was a most desolate and lonely spot where people would be taken and buried, and clearly somebody wanted them to be remembered and not buried in an unmarked grave.
Another artefact at the museum here in Dumfries is the prison shackles. Now, shackles to restrain a person have been in use since Roman times, and in some countries they are still used today. Closer to home, during the early 1820s, we hear of a man, David Haggart, who was something of an expert at escaping from the shackles in the prisons. He had no less than 15 charges of housebreaking and theft hanging over his head when he was only 12 years of age. He spent time in Aberdeen, Edinburgh, Jedburgh and Dumfries before he escaped from them all by cutting his chains from the shackles. He was finally caught in Ireland before being brought back to Dumfries. This time he was heavily chained and shackled. They weren't taking any chances. Another artefact close by is a spring gun. Spring guns were used mainly as traps against poachers or trespassers. A string or a wire would be attached to the trigger, and when the string was touched, the gun would be set off. One sad tale to come out of Glasgow during these early days of body snatching occurred in Blackfriars Graveyard. A failed body snatching attempt by 3 students, so one of the unsuspecting youths tripped over the wire of a cemetery gun. The gun discharged, killing the student in the process. Now, the gun here dates from the early 19th century and is reported to be still in use in 1860, even though the use of these guns were made illegal in 1829.
You can discover lots of fascinating links with the horrors of the witch hunting era here at Dumfries Museum, and one of those is a witchcraft letter, and it's from Kirkcudbright, and it orders that the magistrates of Dumfries hand over 5 women who were suspected of witchcraft. To give you a sense of what Kirkcudbright Tollbooth was like, it was described as a dark dungeon. It was a place without any comforts. You were basically there with whatever clothes you were wearing, and that was it. There's an amazing collection of dolls housed here in Dumfries Museum, and also at the Old Bridge House, and for some people dolls can be a little bit eerie. You've got the ones with really sleepy eyes that stare at you. You've got the waxy faces. Some dolls actually had real hair on their heads, others of course without, and when they start decaying, they decay in a most chilling manner. Of course, dolls bring a lot of joy as well, and children absolutely love them, and there are some really beautiful ones here in the collection. I guess they're different things to different people, but the more realistic they are, the more unnerving they seem to be.
Well, thank you for watching the video, and we hope you've enjoyed your excursion into Dark Dumfries here at Dumfries Museum.
We encourage you to come along to Dumfries Museum and discover its dark delights for yourself.